Apparently there was a glitch into their system, so after I complained yesterday, they fixed it. So some of my students in my yesterday class were able to record the session.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else wants to record the session that you couldn't do it last time? Okay. All right, it's 9:30, and unfortunately, we are missing a lot of people, 14 people. I want to talk about the project, and then we're going to continue on chapter 9. Now, I email you the project, so now every group knows exactly what they're supposed to do. Uh, as you notice, like thermal solar power plant is a group 1. So that's your group number, and thermal solar is the type of project that you want to research and you're going to write a report on. And so on and so forth, all the way to the group 7. Let's see how you're going to do this. If you look at the beginning of the assignment, the first word of the first sentence, it says conceptual design. Now, you're going to learn how to do the conceptual design because that's your future. At no time when you graduate and you start working, you really get involved in an actual design of a real project. So any project, whether it's a manufacturing or design or construction or aerospace, you always start with a conceptual idea to see if it works before you go further down in the road and spend a lot of man hours to do the work and find out that the idea was just no good, whether the idea didn't have a financial viability or it just not practical. So you need to pay attention to that and you need to be focused. So that's one thing you want to learn from this, how to address the conceptual idea. Let's give you an example. Let's say I'm sitting in a bar and minding my own business. Somebody come and sit next to me and ask me what I do for a living. And I say, I'm a mechanical engineer. And then the first respond to that, oh, do you fix cars? No. Oh, you drive a locomotive? No. I design a power plant. Oh, I see. So what do you do exactly? Well, I design a renewable energy power sources. Well, that's a great idea. Guess what? I'm the president of Cal State Long Beach. We have a lot of buildings, a lot of facilities, and we want to put a solar on the roof of these facilities. Could you tell me how this is worked? Okay. Now, I have two choices. I can go back to my office, gather the entire team. Of course, I have to call the structural engineer, chemical engineer, environmental engineers, electrical engineers, all of this that they're not in our company. Call them, bring them over, design the whole thing for the entire campus. It's going to take us about 9 months and a cost of probably $1 million. And then go back and hand it to him, and he look at it and say, you know what, I'm not interested. So what kind of a businessman I'm going to be? Keep in mind, you're an engineer at the same time, you're a businessman. Because whatever you design, whatever you do has to make a financial sense. If it doesn't, you're not going to do it. So what's my second choice? The second choice is I got a piece of paper and I say, since you have a big, large campus, let's just pick one building and make it a pilot program. And we do a solar for that building. Tell me what's the size of that building that you want to pick. So the president will give me the ECS building size. And very quickly, I just do a little calculation based on my experience. And I say, well, for that building, you're a candidate to put like, 100 kilowatt of solar, and it's going to cost you this much roughly, and you're going to save that much money throughout the years for the next 20 years, 25 years. Now, if he's happy with that conceptual idea that I gave him, then he said, okay, this is a great idea. So if in one building I will save $10,000 a year, if I do it for all the campus, I'm going to end up to save a couple of $100,000 each year. So that's a no-brainer. I want to do it. At that time, I asked the president, well, now you have to sign a contract. Once you sign a contract with me, then I go back, bring my team, we come and do the site investigations, we get all the details, we gather all the engineers. It will take us 6 to 8, 9 months to design a complete set. We're going to bring it to you with all the costs and everything else and all the savings. And if you want us to help you to construct it, we're going to introduce you to a few companies. You pick the one that you like, and you do the construction, and that's what's going to happen. At that time, it's a win-win situation. I didn't lose any money. The president didn't lose anything, actually gained a lot of money, and everybody is happy. So that's how the system works. So we always start in a conceptual idea. We don't get into the details of what would be the cost of the operation, what would be the taxes, what would be the interest rate on the financing, none of those, because initially we just want to entice the person, get him interested, that's it. After that, that's where the actual job going to start. So for this practice, you're not capable of designing any of these, the real thing, but you are capable of designing the conceptual idea. So that's what you need to do. So please just stay away from all the details. I don't need any AutoCAD design. I don't want any financial calculation about the interest rate, operation and maintenance costs, what are the taxes, what are the fees, and so on and so forth. So everything is going to be conceptual. And there are times that you have to make a guesstimate. For instance, if you want a piece of property to do a solar farm on that, or a wind farm, I don't want you to call the real estate agent and say, well, I own a 20 acres land in Mojave Desert. How much is it going to cost? Just go ahead and guesstimate. Guess it. Make a guess. Write your assumption that we're estimating the land would cost $100,000 or $1 million, whatever you decide. So don't need to get to the details of bringing a real estate agent to your team in order to find that out. Now, I give you a range of a 500 kilowatt to 10 megawatt. However, you're not limited. I don't want you to do anything less than a 500 kilowatt. However, you can go beyond the 10 megawatt. And as you will see in a practical purpose when you do the conceptual design, some of the projects with 10 megawatt, like a geothermal power plant, might not financially become viable, and you want to increase it to 20 or 30 or maybe 50 megawatt. You are more than welcome to do it. You're free to move around and make those choices. So you're not obligated. Your hands are not tied. Now, the first thing you do, the team leaders, you're going to come up with a schedule. This is what you're going to learn again. You're going to learn a lot of things in this practice that you will never ever learn before, or any other classes that you're going to take. None of these things are going to be there. Now, today is 9:15. This is the day basically you start. This is called timeline schedule. Now, the timeline, the schedule, it's set up by you, by the entire team. So the first thing you do, you set up a first meeting. And then you say, okay, we have until, 11:30 to submit this project. So that's the time period that we have. So we're going to start the first 2 weeks, for instance, we're going to do the research. That's for 2 weeks. The next, 3 weeks, for instance, we're going to gather all the data and do the calculations. If there is any requirement of it. We're going to find the location. Now, as far as the location is concerned, you're not bound to just do it in Cal State Long Beach or California or the United States. You can do it anywhere you want, any place, China, Middle East, Europe, wherever you feel like it. So you're not tied down to just one particular location. However, you have to be careful. If you're doing a solar power plant, you really don't want to go to Sweden and do it there because financially it's not going to work out because you don't have too much sun in Sweden, especially wintertime, 23 hours a night and 1 hour, daytime. So you want to pick a location that has a maximized, sunshine like California, Arizona, Nevada. These are the United States. Or you can go to Saudi Arabia, you can go to, so many places, China, Vietnam, Korea. There are so many places that you can go that there are ample, sunshine or wind or sources of the geothermal. So you need to pick the location that will suit your projects. So then after that, you said we're going to spend like another 2 weeks to, for instance, write the report and prepare the draft of the report. Then we're going to spend 1 week to compile it, put them together, read it, see if it's flowed, see it's according to the guidelines that we have, and everything makes sense. And then we do the financial, for instance. Then you leave some time to the PowerPoint presentation. And then you leave about 1 week to practice on your PowerPoint presentation. So if you set up your schedule, of course, this is completely arbitrary. I just came up with that. You are the one you're going to make this timeline schedule. This is going to be extremely helpful because when you graduate, when you start working, first of all, you're not going to work by yourself. You are part of a team. So you're going to learn in this process teamwork. Second thing is you're going to learn how to schedule your activities and meet the deadline. Because in real life, when you start working, you will be involved in 3 or 4 different projects. And they all have a different deadlines and they all have a different schedule. So for you to survive, you have to be at the top of everything and make sure you are meeting your deadlines one after another. Because if you fall behind, you bring the whole team down. So please be very careful. Now, keep in mind, the way I score your project is from 0 to 20. That's a 20% that, we said we allocated for this project. Now, you submit 1 report from the group, only 1, not 5 reports, and you get 20 or you get 0 for the entire team. Of course, so far, I never seen anyone getting less than 16 points out of 20. Most of the time, I get 3 or 4 groups that are all 20, the rest is 18 and 19. So I'm sure you're going to do the same thing. So make sure you get one score for the whole team. I cannot score individual that they are part of that team. Keep that in mind. You're going to make it, or you're going to win, or you're going to lose as a team, all together. At any point, this is to the project team leaders. You are one of the team members. You don't have any authority to kick somebody out or do anything like that. But you're taking a lead. Your job is making sure the first week you prepare, the first meeting, you prepare your timeline, schedule, and you make an assignment. Say, okay, who wants to look at the thermal solar, do the research on that? Who wants to do the financial? Who wants to do, go and find the location of that? Who wants to do all the calculations? So everyone will take responsibility for a portion of the project. It's up to you how you're going to do it within your team. And once you decide that, you make sure you set up a deadline for every activities, and everybody going to come back to the team leader and report, okay, I did this, I did my part. And the team leader's job is to compile all the information it's getting from everyone and putting a draft report together and share it with everyone. Keep in mind, the report is written by everyone, not by the project team leader. You submit your portion of it. His job is to combine it and make sure that basically it flows and it's in the right way of doing it. It's not just hodgepodge of everything all over places. So that's about the timeline, and that's very important. You're going to learn that. You're going to learn how to work in the team. You're going to learn how to meet the deadline. Now, if you recall at the beginning of the semester, I asked you, what is our product as an engineer? We don't have any product. The only thing we have is our brain. So when you graduate, every day, all the way to the 30, 40 years that you want to work in that field, every single day, you are selling yourself. You're selling your ideas. You are selling your brain. That's what you're going to do. So through this exercise, you're going to learn how to be a good salesman, how to articulate your idea and sell it and make sure the guy who's sitting and listening to you is going to buy your idea. He's going to accept. He's going to go for it. Now, you're going to learn how to manage your time, how to manage the project. That is the project, and you're managing it. So you're going to learn project management. These are the things that you never practiced it before, and you won't practice it anywhere else. So although this is conceptual, but in reality, it's a real thing. It is something that is real. You're going to learn. Every group going to do their job, and when you make a presentation, the rest of the group going to learn all 7 projects. And that's the beauty of it. You're going to get exposed to all of these things. So be conscientious of that. Now, once you have all the data that you collect after your research, the data you have becomes your design parameter. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're doing a solar PV project. Now, on the solar PV project, you know that you have to, for instance, a solar, one small panel contained a lot of modules, 48 or 36 modules in one little tiny panel. And this will generate, let's say, for instance, 300 watt of power, one panel. Now, if you decide to do 600 kilowatt, that means you get a 600,000, you divide it by 300, and you need 2,000 panels, 2,000 panels like this. Of course, today, what they do, they put 10 of these in one panel, like that, 10 of them or 12 of them in one larger panel. So if there are 10 of these, that means you have 3,000 watt, and you need only, 20 of these or 200 of these. So it all depends. You decide how much you need, what do you need, and that's how it's going to work. So these are the parameters. These are the simple calculation you need to do. I don't want you to get into the details how the PV system is designed internally and do the calculation and the circuitries and all of that. No, it's not your job. Yours is just to determine the size of the project that you have, how much land you need for that, and how many panels you need. And that would be, the cost of your equipment. So that's the data you gather. Once you get the data, then you sit down and do a simple calculations of what needs to be done. So your technical calculation should not be more than a half a page. So it's not that going to be a big deal of solving a big, huge problem. So once you have that, then you have a total cost. Now you want to calculate your revenues so you can compare the two. That's called financial analysis. Again, that's your future. Everything you do, you have to do the financial analysis, show it to your boss that it makes sense to do this, or show it to the client and show them that, hey, this is a great opportunity for you. There are a lot of savings involved, and you should do that. Now, how are we going to do this? I gave you some equation, if you look at it, that what would be the assumptions for the cost. First thing is, the equipment. The equipment is 50% of your total cost. So let's say you find out you need 200 big, large panel, and each panel costs, I don't know, $100. So that means you have to pay $20,000 just for the panel. And then you have some wiring and all of this, so you estimate that would be $5,000. So all of a sudden you have the cost, and let's say $30,000 would be your equipment cost. If $30,000 your equipment cost is equivalent of a 50%, what is your total cost? Your total cost would be $60,000. Out of that $60,000, you know that 50% goes for the equipment. You know that 35% goes for the construction. And the balance of the 15% goes for engineering design. That's a formula you use in order to calculate your total cost right here. Now, some of the equipment are simple, like solar is very easy to find out. Some of them, like geothermal, would be difficult. Now, what you can do when you do your research, there are a lot of existing projects similar to what you're doing. And if you do it with research, you can find out how much it costs them to do that. Then, based on that, make an assumption. If this project is 100 megawatt and costs $5 million, and just to scale it down to a 10 megawatt that you're doing. So That will be the total cost of your project. So you can do that. Some of the equipment, you can call a manufacturer. And if you tell them that you're a student, you're doing a project for school, and you want a rough estimate of the cost, they're nice. They will give you some rough cost because they know that you're doing it for a school project. It's not a real thing. So you can take advantage of all of these in order to figure out the cost. As far as the land concerned, if you want to get a piece of land, don't kill yourself over that. Don't call a real estate agent to find out. Guesstimate. Okay, I need 10-acre land and it's going to cost $100,000. Fine. Again, all of these things are based on a conceptual idea. It's not a real thing. In a real thing, we go and find out what would be the actual cost of the land. And there are environmental impact reports, or fees that we have to pay, permits we have to pay. You don't have to worry about any of those. Just guesstimate, whatever it is. Don't kill yourself over the land, especially if you decide to do a project, let's say in Saudi Arabia. What are you going to do? You want to pick up the phone and call somebody in Saudi Arabia and say, what is a piece of land in a desert in Saudi Arabia? How much is it going to cost? Because they're going to laugh at you. They're going to hang up the phone. They won't even answer. Or calling China to ask that question. Same thing. So don't bother with some of the cost. You can always estimate. Now, once you come up with the total cost of the project, now you need to come up with the revenue. Now, the revenue is basically, you need to be very conscientious, depends on your project. For a solar PV, you understand that you cannot have a 24-hour solar. So what you need to do, for instance, for solar PV, you say, instead of 365 days a year, you say, well, I'm assuming 200 days per year. And each day, I'm assuming I have 6 hours of sunshine. And I have 10,000 kilowatt hour that I'm generating. And then I'm going to multiply that by what I gave you as 18 cents per kilowatt hour cost. That you can sell your power at this rate. So this becomes your revenue. Once you have your revenue, you're going to look at the cost versus revenue. You compare that. And the way you compare it, you say, okay, my total cost, let's say, is $1 million. My revenue is $200,000 per year. So if I divide the 1 million by 200,000, what do I get? I get 5 years. We call that simple payback. That means in 5 years, this project, the revenues will pay for the cost of the project. Now the project lasts 25 years. So after the, from the beginning of the 6th year, you make nothing but a profit. $200,000 a year, all the way profit until, 25 years. So that's how you do it. If you're doing, for instance, a wind farm, you cannot say, well, 365 days a year, we're going to have a wind turbine running. Now, the old wind turbine, as you're going to research and find out, it was designed for the wind coming from one direction only. If you go drive towards, Palm Springs, you see all those small old windmills. They're all angled in a different way. Some of them turning, the rest of them just standing still. Today's wind turbine, they designed a pitch of the blade that no matter the direction of the wind, the windmill still keep on turning, which is good. Now, keep in mind that at least 2 months every year, they shut down the place for maintenance and operation. So instead of, your calculation being 365 days, you can say 300 days per year multiply 20 hours per day. That would be, that plus whatever the size of your project is. You can put a 10 megawatt, which is a 10 million kilowatt, and then multiply it by 18 cents to get your revenue. Now, what happens if you do this and your cost would be $1 million and your revenue is only $50,000? That's a disaster, right? So you have two choices. One choice is you can basically go back and increase the size of your project. You're increasing your revenue while the basic costs remain almost the same. Construction costs, engineering costs, all of that remain the same. Your equipment cost goes up a little bit. If you double your size of a project, your equipment costs will go up about 25% or 30%, not double. The other choice is what we have the conclusion for. You write down on your conclusion that this project is a viable project. It will work. However, for a geothermal power plant, we cannot make a power plant reliable for 5 megawatt. However, if we go to 20 megawatt or 30 megawatt, whatever it is, then this project financially going to be viable. That's what you discuss it in your conclusions. So you can, again, you're free to pick whatever you want to do. So that's in a nutshell going to be the whole project. So most of it is research, writing a technical report, make sure you have a good timeline and schedule, do it, do not procrastinate. If you spend 2 hours a week on this project, that would be plenty. Because there are 5 people in the group, 2 hours a week, that makes it 10 hours. That's a lot of time. And you have like 10, 12 weeks to do it. However, please do not procrastinate, wait for the last minute, because it's going to be a disaster. Word of advice to our team leaders. Please do not contact me 1 week before the project due and say that, well, you know what, I'm a team leader and let's pick a name. Abe was part of my team and he didn't do anything. He refused to help. He always dragged his feet and I don't know what to do. And so we end up, the rest of us, the 4 of us, end up finishing the project. That is the lack of leadership. The minute you find out that Abe is dragging his feet, I'm sorry, Abe, I'm not picking on you, I'm just using it as an example. The minute you find that out, you should immediately contact me and let me know that one person in your team, he or she, is not doing his or her share of the work. I will contact the person, have a one-to-one discussion, and find out whether he or she wants to be part of that project or not. If they decide they don't want to have anything to do with it, their choice, that's fine. But instead of 20 points, they get 0 points. And that will bring their score way down. So you can't afford to have that. And you cannot afford to let one person in your team drag you down. So the minute you have some issues, some problem with some person, don't get involved in an argument and fist fight or anything. Contact me, let me, solve that problem for you. And that's simple as that. Now, what you're going to do after today, the project leaders, you guys are going to set up a, meeting with Zoom or personal. It's up to you. Once you have this meeting, you decide, we have a discussion, you decide what you want to do, all of that. Somebody in the team is responsible. Each time you have somebody do that, so not the team leader being responsible to do it. Somebody in the team going to write the meeting minutes. That's something you're going to do in the future. When you graduate, your boss will send you a different meeting and say, hey, there's a meeting for so-and-so project. I want you to go there and come back and report and let me know what happened. So you go there, you write the note, you come back and write the meeting minutes. The meeting minutes is contained, number one, the title of the project. Number two, who were in that meeting? Then number three, what was discussed? Number four, what are the action items? Your meeting, you have action items. Abe is going to research the property. Jack is going to research for, wind turbine. So those are the action items. Then at the end, you're going to write when is going to be the next meeting. That is called meeting minutes. Again, this is something that you've never done before. You'll never do in any other courses, but you're going to learn how to do that because that's your future. Through this exercise, I am trying to make you full engineer ready to hit the market. It's up to you to take advantage of it and learn as much as you can so you have a bright future ahead of you. If you don't, it's going to be your problem. 3 years ago, I had a girl in my class. Once she finished, that was her last semester, she went and, got hired at Boeing in Long Beach, and she started working there. 4 months into her job, the big boss called up a meeting. And he said, well, somebody approached us that we should do a hydrogen fuel cell because we're using a lot of power. And we need to do this to help lowering our cost. And I have no idea what this guy was talking about. He's a salesman. Does anybody know anything about hydrogen fuel cell? And guess what? The girl with the 4 months of experience raised her hand. And she said, I did that project at the school. I know exactly what's going on and what needs to be done. So they brought it in front. They asked her to make a presentation. She did. Everybody was impressed. And the person with a 4 months experience, she ended up to be a project manager for Boeing, looking into the construction, design and construction of a hydrogen fuel cell at their facility. She sent me an email thanking me for exposing her to that kind of a project. Even though she was working for Boeing, had nothing to do with power plant, but she ended up in a very great shape. Can you imagine with all the engineers, at Boeing, none of them knew anything about hydrogen fuel cell? And a kid fresh out of college taking over and doing the work? That's how you can, make a difference. That's what I want you to prepare. Don't think that you're going to get into the manufacturing and you have nothing to do with any of this. You'll be surprised. I have so many of those examples that happen. Somebody's mic is on. Abraham, I guess it's yours. So please stay focused and pay attention to that. Now, let's see about how you're going to write your report. I give you a guideline. Now, what you do, each report should have a title page. The title page, most of you put logo of a Long Beach, that's fine. But the important thing is you put your group number. Let's say if you're doing a title wave, your group is group 5. So you said group 5, title wave, power plant. That would be on your title page. And the date, which is November 29th, 2021, that's the date that you submitted your report. Then you go to the next page. The next page should be table of content. Because when you write a report, when you send it to a client, don't think that one person will read the whole report. That's not how it works. The client gets a report, take the technical part, hand it to the engineers, take the operating and maintenance part, hand it to the O&M guy, take all the financial, give it to the CFO. That's how they do it. So having a table of content, you're telling your reader that where to go and find what. So if I'm the CEO of a company or if I'm the CFO of the company, I don't understand the technical mumbo jumbo. I just want to know how much it's going to cost me when I'm going to get my money back. That's all I care. If I am head of a maintenance, I want to know what kind of equipment I'm getting, what kind of maintenance I have to do on it, and for how long. Do I have a proper operator to operate that? Do I have to send somebody to be trained to deal with the windmills? So that's how it's going to happen. The engineers, of course, they look at your technical aspects of it. That's why you need the table of content with a page number. Don't forget that. Then the next item is introduction of a team member. Now, in the past, some of the students, they created a fake corporation, like Jack Renewable Energy, Inc. Jack was the vice president, was the president, Arthur was the CFO, and Abe was, chief operating officer, and so on and so forth. That's fine. You can do that. There's nothing wrong with that. So you can introduce your team that way, or you can introduce your team as, hey, I'm Howard, I'm Arthur, and I'm in my last year of the school, and just maybe one or two sentence introduction. I don't want a 2-page resumes of every individual. Okay, just keep that in mind. Not more than a 2 sentence for each person as far as the introduction concerned. Then after that, you're going to have maybe 2 paragraphs, half a page, brief description of a project. You want to tell your audience exactly what you're doing. So you're going to say, we're going to do windmill, and windmill generally is this and this and this and this and that. Keep in mind, windmill, there have all different kind of a windmill project. And you decide which one you want to pick. And you're going to have a description of the one that you pick that is part of the project. So very brief, not more than a half a page of description, or a brief description of a project. Then you're going to put the research results, all the data you gather. It's called design parameters. Based on your research, for instance, each panel of the solar PV is going to generate this much power. So if we want to design 10 kilowatt, we need that many panels. So you can do all of that, or every windmill generate 1 megawatt of power. So I need 5 of them to generate 5 megawatt of power. So whatever that you do the research, you're going to just have that information, all those data that you gather, put it there. Then if there is a need for any calculations, which is simple calculation, there are 1 or 2 projects that requires a little bit more, but not much. There are 2 projects requires a chapter 10, which we're going to talk about next after we finish chapter 9, that you need to include some diagrams in it. That's about it. Simple calculation, nothing crazy, nothing drastic. And again, you can make assumptions, all that up to you. So after the calculation, then the conceptual design layout. The conceptual design layout, I don't want any AutoCAD design with dimensions. Let's say you have a land and you want to put the solar. So this is, you come up with the arrays of, big panels, and you make sure you leave enough distance for maintenance and operation. Most importantly, you don't want the front panel shade the panel behind it. So once you do the research, you find all of these things down. So this is how you're going to do it. That's your design layout. Simple as that. No dimensions, nothing. You just say this is a 20-acre land. That's it. And we're going to do the panels like this. And you don't have to have all 10,000 of them here. No. Because you said this is a typical arrangement for the solar PV system. Again, all of these projects that I assigned to you, there are existing projects right now is in operation throughout the world. So we can take a picture of the layout that they have and use that as your design layout. That's fine too. So no details, technical design that you have to do. Again, it's a conceptual design layout. Site selections, again, if you're selecting a site, the least you can do, take a picture of that site that you're looking at and include it there that this is the location. You can basically look at the Google map and just extract that portion of it that you want to do a solar in a Yuma, Arizona, and then you say, that's what it is, that's what's going to be. Then we go to cost analysis, which we discussed. You calculate all the cost, you calculate all the revenue, and then you decide, what's a simple payback. When it comes to financials, make sure you use tables. Don't write down, because keep in mind, people get bored reading a whole bunch of sentences and paragraphs. Tables, graphs, it's a better illustrations of your thought process than just writing words. So use a table. These are the costs, these are the revenue, this is the simple payback, and blah, blah. All in one table would be much easier than writing. Or if you want to do the calculation, same thing. Don't say, I have 200 panel, I multiply that by, 18 hours per day, and then I multiply. You know how much time you waste writing all of that? Which you can simply put it on a table or just write the equation and get it over with. So try to make it easy as possible. Then, of course, conclusions. That's very important. Make conclusions, write recommendation. What do you recommend that we should do? Now it goes to the appendix and attachment. When you do research, when you go to website and you decide this website, this is the one that you want to get the data from it, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to take a snapshot of that screen that you're in, and that would be your reference. Don't write on your reference www.soandso.com, that's where I got it. Because you never want to give your client a project assignment. Now, in real life, we take all that information from that website and include it in the attachment of the report. I don't want you to do that because I don't want you to waste the paper. One page snapshot of your research. That's all I need. Then put your name on the corner, handwritten or with it, if you want to type it or handwritten, it's fine. That shows me who did what. That's how you can communicate with me that everybody participate in doing the project. That goes in attachment. All your meeting minutes goes to the attachment. If you contact a manufacturer and they send you a cut sheet catalog, that goes to the attachment. If you have few other pictures that you want to include in your report, that goes to the attachment. You can include some pictures in your report and then some into the attachment. So make sure that you just organize it exactly the way I set it up. Your meeting minutes, I guess I said that. That also goes into the attachment. Now it gets to the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint presentation is always, always, always highlights of your report. A lot of people have a tendency to do the PowerPoint presentation before even they finish the report. Don't ever do that. That's a no-no. You lose points on that, because I catch it right away. Make sure your PowerPoint presentation matches your report. Don't put anything in a PowerPoint presentation that you don't have it in your report, or vice versa. So finish your report, 8 to 12 slides maximum. And each person who worked on that portion of the project should prepare that slide. And a slide is just a highlight, not in details. You're not putting the entire report in a PowerPoint presentation. Just the bullets are highlights of what you've done, on that project. From this point on, I know you're going to have tons of questions. Come to my office hour classes, ask questions, send me emails, send me text. And every now and then I ask the class if there is any problem or any questions on the project. Make sure, ask the questions so you can do a great job. Any questions? Okay.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
For the presentation, will we be presenting it or is it just for you to see?
Well, we'll see. If we have enough time, we will set up the presentation and we can do it via Zoom. So if one group going to open their mic and of course their camera, and they're going to share their PowerPoint presentation, to share the screen and make their presentation. And each team will have only 10 minutes to do it. If we don't have time, I will take a look at your PowerPoint and give you a comment about it. That's the worst case scenario. Usually, where in person, every group will make a presentation in front of a class. But since we are not in-person classes, we are doing Zoom, so that's the best we can do. So we'll see as the time goes by. Any other?
Okay.
All right, let's go back to what we did last time, and that was we started on breaking cycle, and we talked about all the characteristics and everything of the breaking cycle. Now, as always, as we discussed it in auto cycle, diesel cycle, this one the same way. You have two options to solve the problem. One would be thermal solutions. One would be heat transfer solutions. Thermal solutions, you go to the table. Heat transfer solution using the temperatures and ideal gas equation for isentropic processes. Now, for these, there has to be one condition before you start, and that's CP and CV to be constant. If it's not, you cannot, absolutely not use this concept. So be very careful. Only if CP and CV are constant, you can use this type of a solution. Again, like before, no mixing and matching. Okay? Now, here, first time that for thermal part at a state 1, based on T1, you go to the table, A17 or A17E, depends on the system you're in. You find H1 and PR1. Before you find the VR1 because you have a compression ratio. Now we have pressure ratio, we find PR1. At state 2, we write PR2 over PR1 is P2 over P1, and that's how we find PR2. Based on that, we go to table, we find H2 and T2. At state 3, again, at the value of T3 that is given, you go to the table and find H3 and PR3. At state 4, once again, PR4 over PR3 will be equal to P4 over P3, which is 1 over R of P. P2 over P1 is R of P. P4 over P3 is the reverse of that. From there, you will find PR4, and then you go to the table again, you find H4 and T4 if you need it. And that's how basically we're going to do the examples, but that's how we do it from the, from the table. Once you have all the H values, then you know how to find a Q in, Q out, W in, or work of a compressor and work of a turbine. Now, if this is the case, then we say T2 over T1 is equal to P2 over P1 to the power of K minus 1 over K. These are the isentropic equation based on the pressure ratio, and that's how you find the value of T2. Then T4 over T3 is equal to P4 over P3 to the power of K minus 1 over K. And that's how you find T4. T1 is given, T3 is given, you find the other T. So now your Q in becomes CP times T3 minus T2. Your Q out would be CP times T4 minus T1. The work of a compressor would be CP times T2 minus T1. Work of a turbine would be CP times T3 minus T4. Once you find the Q in and Q out, or work of a compressor and work of a turbine, the difference between them will give you Q in. The difference, or this one, will give you Q in. Thermal efficiency remain the same. Nothing's changed on that. So this is very crucial for you to understand. It's a different, because on an auto and diesel cycle, we have T2 over T1 equal to V1 over V2 to the power of K minus 1. But now it's a pressure. So it's a K minus 1 over K to find the T2. So there is a difference between the two. Don't get them confused. Auto and diesel cycle deal with the compression ratio. Brayton cycle deal with the pressure ratio. So that's why we find PR1 and PR2 and PR3 and so on and so forth in order to get the value when we go into the table. And if we go this route, when this is constant, we can use this equation. Any questions? All right, don't have time to do an example. Let's see if we can squeeze it in. Now, are you okay with this? These are something you've seen before. So I'm going to erase it. I'm going to do an example. Let's see. Now, the first thing we do, we draw the TS diagram. That's 1 and 2. 3 and 4. That's our TS diagram. Very quickly, we can find that out. Now, we have a cycle that R of P is 8. The pressure ratio is 8. Temperature at the beginning of the compressor is 300 degrees Kelvin. Temperature after the heat addition is 1300 degrees Kelvin. So now we want to find all, let's say thermal efficiency, the thermal efficiency and also the backwork ratio. Okay. The backwork ratio, this is what we need to find, is work of a compressor divided by work of a turbine. Work of a compressor is H2 minus H1 divided by H3 minus H4. That's what I need to do. Thermal efficiency is a network divided by Q in. If I find these two, the difference between them give me a network. And if I find the Q in, I can find the thermal efficiency. So I can write work of a turbine minus work of a compressor divided by Q in will give me that work of a turbine minus work of a compressor is the network. I'm not going to find a Q out. Why should I waste my time doing extra work? So, there's a problem that I didn't discuss. All right, let's not do this. Let's do it next time because there's an important thing I need to talk about. Now, one of the things that you need to understand, no mechanical equipment is 100% efficient. Mechanical equipment always have their own efficiency. In our case, we have a compressor. So the efficiency of a compressor is work of a compressor in isentropic process divided by work of a compressor in actual process. Efficiency of a turbine is equal to work of a turbine in actual divided by work of a turbine isentropic. Let's expand this. Oh, before I do that, first thing, when you are given efficiency of a compressor and turbine, the first thing you need to do, you need to show that on your TS diagram. So this 2 becomes 2s. Why? Because this is isentropic. This is where S1 is equal to S2s. It's isentropic. S3 is equal to S4S. Again, it's isentropic. To find the actual, you draw a line. This point becomes 2A. So this is the actual, right here, work of a compressor. This is isentropic work of a compressor. For the turbine, we go from 3 is 4 is 4S. This becomes 4A. So that's the first thing we need to do the TS diagram, show the efficiency. Now that I have that, I can expand these two equations. Now, what is the work of a compressor isentropic? Look at here, that is H2S minus H1. What is the work of a compressor actual? H2A minus H1. Similarly, for the turbine, what is the actual work of a turbine? H3 minus H4A. What is the isentropic part? H3 minus H4S. These two never changes. These are equations. That's how we find efficiency of a compressor and efficiency of a turbine. The values that we find from the table, it's always isentropic values, not the actual value. Because up to now, we didn't show these green lights. We just saw everything isentropically. Now you know why I insist to dash the isentropic, because when you have these 2A and 4A, you don't get them confused. That's how you can help yourself. Now, if this efficiency is given, this side is already known to you. You find H2S from the table and H1. From that, you find H2A. Similarly, if you have efficiency of a turbine, let's say 90%, that's 0.9 on this side. On that side, you find H3, that's no problem. H4S, you find it from the table, isentropic. The only unknown would be H4A. Once you find those values, then you have to include it in your calculation. So, for instance, Q in becomes H3 minus H2A, not H2. Q out would be H4A minus H1. Work of a compressor is H2A minus H1. Work of a turbine is H3 minus H4A. This will have a huge effect on your efficiency, overall thermal efficiency, because your Q in, as you can see, is going to be smaller. However, your Q out is going to be much larger. Work of a compressor. This is going to be work of a compressor, and that would be work of a turbine. Larger work of a compressor, smaller work of a turbine. So when you want to get overall thermal efficiency, you can see it will drop drastically. And that's when we do the example, you get the hang of it. So the example I was doing has that case. So we're going to do it next Monday, and you'll see the difference. But please pay attention to these two equations. It is very important when the efficiency, let's say the problem says efficiency of the compressor is 85%, efficiency of the turbine is 90%. If that is given, the first thing you do, you make sure you include it on your TS diagram. Then make sure you find the actual value of 2A and 4A and make sure you include it in your calculations before you get, the network here and ultimately getting the thermal efficiency. Once you find the Q in and Q out, it doesn't matter how you find it, network equation is the same. Thermal efficiency equation is the same. Any questions? If you have any questions, stick around my office hours. I'll be more than happy to answer your question. If not, I will see you next Monday. Take care of yourself, stay healthy, and be safe.
All right, thank you, Professor.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.